certain signs that the person should be looking for, or how can you tell if you make?
You don't need to look for signs. You'd find that peace and tranquility dawning upon you. You'd find yourself more aware of things. You look at a flower now. Oh, no flowers. Huh. You look at a flower now, and after a few weeks of meditation, you'll still see the same flower, but you will find it much, much more beautiful. Another way, you'll find people coming up to you, your friends, your family, says, you've really changed, what's happening to you? They say. So automatically you feel these things. You feel the togetherness within yourself, which is conducive to your joy and happiness. So when you are joyous, as I said before, you make your environment joyous too. Very simple, effortless. I do not like to use the word meditation very much because it has been so much abused. It has become what the Americans call a racket, where thousands of and hundreds of dollars are charged just by handing out a piece of paper like this. One organization, they got 16 mantras, and they hand them out on age basis. And there's another organization operating somewhere here that you got to first go and bow down to the Guru, prostrate yourself, and he bops you with a bunch of feathers. And if you ask him for a mantra, he has ready-made printed cards and he gives you one. There's your mantra. That is not the way to spirituality. Only Jesus saves. Only Christ can save. Now what does that mean? Only Christ can save. Of course he saves, because he is the consciousness. But I show you how to reach that consciousness. That is our system. Next. Let me find another joke then. This chap came home a bit tipsy. So his wife asked him, after he came home, he went out with a friend and he got tipsy. Tipsy? Drunk? Loaded. Right. So the wife asked him, where were you? He says, well, I went out with John to the Grand Hotel. So next day, this lady meets John's wife. And she asks, I believe my husband was out with yours last night. And they got drunk. And when the husband reached home the previous night and was asked, where were you? He said, I was at the Grand Hotel. But when this lady met her friend the next day and says, where were they? To get so tipsy, so drunk. So she's, yeah. So this friend told her they went to the Trocadero Hotel. So when the husband got home, the wife berated him. He said, why did you tell me a lie? Why did you say you went to the Grand Hotel when you actually went to the Trocadero? So the husband replies, I was in no condition to pronounce Trocadero. Next question. Yes?
Human consciousness changed down the ages, or
The level of human consciousness collectively has not changed. people are the same today as they were 5,000 years ago during the time of Krishna, 2,500 years ago during the time of Buddha, and 2,000 years ago during the time of Christ. Collectively, there has been no progress. There was just as much lust and greed and avarice and covetousness as there is today. So collectively, we do not expect an age of enlightenment like some teachers are teaching. But individually, you can uncover, not raise, but uncover the consciousness that you are in its total purity. How did I go about finding my teacher? A little about him, sure. At a very young age, when I was around about 4.5, I ran away from home to find God. The yearning was so great in me that I had to go. Now, this might sound unusual at the age of 4 to run away, but then remember a person like the Yehudi Menuhin could play Bach and Beethoven at the age of 4. So it is not really unusual. You're born with it. Right. And I went from temple to temple to temple trying to find God. But all those temples contained these various idols, and I started speaking to them, but they wouldn't answer me. But I did enjoy myself, because at a temple you normally take fruit as an offering, and I had a feast for myself. And that is how it went on and on. I was born, brought up in India, educated there. And then I was always searching. I went to many ashrams, monasteries, etc. Met many gurus, listened to them, learned a bit here, learned a bit there, until I met my guru. And something just sparked off. For 8 months he took no notice of me. He took no notice of me at all. He would give me little menial tasks to do. Why is a piece of paper lying there, or what is that there, or what is that there? And then, after a period of 8 months, he said to me one day, "Come on, sit down and meditate with me." I said, "Oh, sure, fine." I sat down and meditated, and 2 hours passed. It seemed like 2 minutes only to me afterwards. And I burst out in a haze of golden light, and which still persists with me from moment to moment, all the time. Even now here, it's all just shining in gold. I wanted to become a monk, but my guru told me none of that monkey business. You go out into the world, get married, find a job, do ever what you want to do, and gain experience. So that when you finally start teaching, when you finally become a teacher, then you'll be talking from experience. And not as a monk who has not known worldly life. And that is how he told me go to the West. And I went to South Africa, because it was easy for me to get there, because my father had been there in South Africa. So to get the residence right, is that what you call it? To be domiciled. It was easy for me to get there. And I went into business. I got married. 3 sons. One son is married. The other has just qualified as a pharmacist. And the baby boy, 15, he's still at high school. And that's how the search was on and on and on all the time, and finding every moment so beautiful, so blissful, so joyful. Whenever I speak to you or anywhere else, I do not speak from book knowledge. I speak from personal experience. So, we getting together here tonight, to me it's a sharing. I'm sharing with you my own experiences of the Father that has become one with me. Huh? Huh? Huh?
The nature of meditation is focus, or whether to surrender, it's super conscious.
It is not focusing attention. When you focus your attention, you are doing concentration, where your attention is focused. Now that's concentration. Then you get contemplation, where you take a thought from A to Z, to take a thought to its logical conclusion, like water being oil being poured from one vessel into another. That's contemplation. Meditation is going beyond the concentration and beyond the contemplation. That's the difference. And these things are personally and individually taught to you. Because you go beyond the troubled spots of the mind and infuse it with that divine energy that is there all the time. Seek and thou shalt find, knock and the door shall be opened. It is there, but we are the lazy beggars that don't do it. It's our fault. Could you interpret Americanese into English? What are the techniques? Oh, that is a very private matter between guru and student. If I talk of one technique, someone might just go and start it, experimenting with it, and which could be very harmful. So there are thousands of techniques, and the one that will be given to you would be the one which is suitable for you. It is not like one bottle of medicine which is okay for every kind of disease on earth. It is something very private, very individual, which you practice. And not only that, if you are given a mantra, for example, then that mantra will come to you from that superconscious level, so it will carry with it that deep, great spiritual force. So I just set off the spark in you. You fan the flame. And I've said this over and over again, that the external guru is there to awaken the internal guru within you. Then you can discard the external guru. This teacher was giving a lesson to his class in science, and he asks one child, tell me about the kettle. What happens? How does water boil, and what about the steam? What purpose does the steam serve? So the little boy answers, well, it helps my mother opening my dad's letters. Questions?
Possible for a person to be able to tune into the consciousness that would allow them to like see in the future, like Gene Dixon and Nostradamus, some of the people
Why do you want to see in the future? That is the trouble with the world, that they either live in the past or project themselves into the future and forget the present. The thoughts you have in your mind is nothing but a recollection. And you think that you are thinking. In reality, you're only working with memory of the past and being influenced by the memory of the past. You project it into the future, forgetting the present. Where are you living now? You're living in the present, and the present itself is eternity. So, why worry what's going to happen in the future? It's not necessary at all. Those abilities can be acquired. I could teach you in 6 months how to do it, but it would be a futile effort. There's a story of two students that studied under the same master. And they'd been apart and were away from each other for about 40 years. So this one fellow acquired the ability to walk on water. So they happened to be at the same place at the same time, and the one was going across the river on a ferry while the other was walking across the water. So the chap that was walking across the water shouted to his old buddy, his old friend, that he had not seen for so many years, "Look what I can do, I can walk on water." So the friend in the ferry replies, "Oh, what a waste of time spending 40 years to acquire this when I just spent 25 cents to take me across the river." You see. So, what is the necessity of knowing into the future? There was this one lecturer giving a lecture, and he said, the world is coming to an end in 20 million years' time. So this poor little lady sitting right at the back stands up and says, "Did you say 20 million years?" He says, No. What I meant was the world will come to an end in 2 million years' time. So the lady gives a sigh of relief. She says, "Oh, thank God."
There seem to be some people, though, in the world that have come to protection of the immigrant thing, that seem to have certain abilities more developed in them than are developed in other people. What is it then that makes them able to do certain things or see certain things differently? Is that an imbalance?
Right. A true spiritual master will never advise you to develop siddhis. That's a Sanskrit word which means occult powers. They could be a great obstacle to you in the path towards self-realization or God-realization. No true spiritual master would ever advise you to do this. Many people acquire certain abilities, and these can very easily be learned just by application. For example, you read books by Mary Roberts, the Seth books and things like that. Or you talk to mediums and they tell you they are in contact with the beyond. No. What they have done or are doing is going to the deeper layers of their own minds, deeper layers of their own subconscious minds, and from there pick up things which might have happened in a past lifetime. They might have been very wise in a past lifetime. And then when they write these books, they would say that such and such a entity speaks through me. They interpret it that way. For example, myself, I'm only dimly aware when I sit and give a talk. I'm only dimly aware of what I'm saying. It's only a day or two later when I listen to the tape, then I would say, hey, did I say that? You see? So it is something where you go within a minute, as in my case, we go to a certain level of the mind or to a certain stage of meditation when things just pour out from deep within you. Say. That is why I don't need to prepare any talk or anything whatsoever, and any question can be asked. It doesn't matter. The answer just comes. Yeah.
I was watching television about a week ago or so at a Christian broadcast network, and I think it was on a Sunday morning, and there was some individual, I didn't catch his name right, I didn't, it must be pretty well known, he was doing something to all these people who were coming up, all the people had hearing problems. And he was poking his fingers in their ears, and several people, there was one little boy, all said they could hear. They had been deaf for years and years, and then they all said they could hear some cry. It seemed to be having some kind of an effect on these individuals. What is he dealing with? What's he drawing on that?
Well, these things I know are possible. Just last month, this tour of mine to America is for a period of 3 months. Started off in Las Vegas and Los Angeles and lectured at various universities, UCLA and blah, 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 blah. The list is endless, practically. I was also at the Institute of Metaphysical Research, where there were a group of psychologists and all the medical people were there, and I did healings. There's one woman who was deaf for about 20 years, and she had to use a very powerful hearing aid just to be able to hear. And I did a healing on her, and just in half an hour, she started hearing. She says, what must I do with this hearing aid? I say, frame it. They say, so this is nothing really wonderful. Well, I don't know. There are two kinds of healings. There's magnetic healing, and then there is spiritual healing. Right. In magnetic healing, the healer gives off from his own energy. Now, that could be a very dangerous thing, because by giving off from your own energies, you might also be passing on some of the negative energies. All right. But spiritual healing is something different, which I do, where you regard yourself just to be an instrument, like a flute, and let divinity blow the flute for the world to enjoy. So I do nothing. He is the doer. And with the same Metaphysical Institute, I spent about 4 days there. There's a woman that had some knee problem, and she had several operations and things and was in pain. And through the grace of the Almighty, I did a healing on her. Her pain disappeared, and she's walking well. And many, many, many other things like that. Even cancer and things have been cured and stopped. And it's not me. It's God's power, not mine. I'm an instrument, a channel. That's all.
Would you put a high price tag, like low price tag on positive thinking?
Would I put a,
high price tag.
What does
Low
it-
Price tag, positive thinking.
What is your opinion of positive thinking?
what is my opinion of positive thinking? Now, I said in a lecture recently that I would challenge Dr. Norman Vincent Peale on any public platform when he says that you can convert your negative thinking into positive thinking. It cannot be done. What can be done is this, that if the mind is filled with negative thoughts, you neutralize the mind with a spiritual practice and gradually introduce the positive thought. So, positive thought definitely has its value. Positive thought is uplifting, while negative thought is making you suffer, debasing. So you can't measure it in the terms of price tags. It is just entirely you. If you want joy, you're positive. If you want misery, you're negative. The thing is this, the choice is yours. You choose. You are the chooser. And of course, your mind, if it's infused with that divine energy through spiritual practices, will become more and more positive in its thought.
But if you have some disaster or misfortune, like you're to still maintaining positive thoughts. Some disaster or misfortune.
Disaster or misfortune, and then what happens?
You still supposed to maintain positive thinking.
Aha, that is where perspective comes in, and your interpretation of misfortune and disaster. That will give you the right kind of thinking. Say, for example, my son dies. It's a disaster, misfortune. I love him, right? Okay. Now, how am I going to look at it? Say, that is where the positivity or negativity will come in. I will start saying to myself that, is it my will or is it thy will? Do I control birth or do I control death? And if I can control neither, what right have I to mope over it? That child which is born through me, do I possess the child? When I don't even possess myself? So, he who possesses the child, he who possesses that soul of the child, has taken him. And my mind will be free of the attachment that you would have for the child. All problems in life stem from attachment. So from attachment, we lead ourselves to non-attachment. Now, non-attachment does not mean a detachment. Detachment is escapism. You escape from yourself, you escape from your problems. But non-attachment is to be in the world and yet not of the world. So the more integrated you are through spiritual practices, the less would you be affected by fortune or misfortune. You will not be elated by praise or deflated by blame. You remain tranquil. You are in total balance and in total control of yourself and your emotions.
Maintain the motivation necessary to stay in touch with.
The greatest motivation is to be motiveless. You cannot be motivated to find divinity. That yearning must rise within you automatically. A guru like me will come along and inspire you, create a yearning in you perhaps, to find divinity. But you got to do it yourself. The yearning must be bred within yourself. And people pray to God. When do they pray? When they are in trouble. That's the only time they really want to pray, when they are in trouble. But how about praying? How about making life itself a prayer? So that you don't get into those troubles. See? That's the secret. No motivation. It's a way of life. And we can improve our way of life. Everyone has plenty of room for improvement, advancement, the oneness with God, away from the dualism of life, and enter that unity, find unity in all diversity. No motivation. Many people, hundreds of thousands of them throughout the world, start meditation because they got problems. I personally have found that out of the 100% of people, there might just be 1 or 2% that really want to find divinity. 98% start meditating or doing spiritual practices because of their personal problems. Good. As long as they start. As I said earlier, I do not promise to show you God, but I can show you the path to Him, and you can find Him. Oh, yes. If someone asks me, do you believe in God? I say no. I don't believe in God. I know God. The one belief is a concept, but knowingness is experience. Yes. Yes. Abuse, negates use. Everything can be used, but to negate it, we call it abuse. Now, why do people take drugs? Or why do people become alcoholics? Because I could talk for hours on the subject, but I'll put it very, very briefly, is because they lack something. So to fill the lack of that something, they use artificial things. They use substitutes such as drugs and alcohol or whatever, because there is a certain lack. Right. Now, I have found that through meditation and spiritual practices, they fill that lack so that the need for the other substitutes do not remain any longer. And we have proven this through controlled experiments. I did a lot of work for alcoholics. And even at the present time, I'm very often, at least twice, thrice a week, called to one of our biggest hospitals to treat people, especially people with cardiac trouble or nervous troubles and things like that. And I put them through a process of meditation where they become much, much more calmer and more conducive to a successful operation. So with alcoholics, for example, I found great success putting them through meditation. Here's a little story. I've always dedicated myself to public service, and there in Cape Town, they wanted to build a center, cultural center, for languages and arts and what have you. And the society needed money. Meanwhile, I received a phone call from a lady that I knew very well. I know the husband very well too. And the husband had a lovely clothing business, outfitting. And because of excessive alcohol, he used to start from morning till night. Because of excessive use of alcohol, he lost his business and got into deep debt. So his wife phoned me, I went to see her, and she discussed this with me. Meanwhile, the husband had one talent. He used to make statuettes. Right. And of course, this was for the Hindu people. So they believed in Shiva and Parvati, those gods and goddesses. And he had a beautiful statue that he had made. I says, look, if you want to reproduce this, what is the process? He said, that's very simple. I would make a mold and then fill these molds with plaster of Paris and then put it through some other process and paint it, and I don't know how it works. So I says, look, can you make 500 of these for me? I'll pay you so much. Good. I got it passed in the committee. Right. And then I appointed a committee. I was the general secretary of the organization. I appointed a committee and I said, you go around now to these Hindu families and give it to them as a gift and ask them for a donation towards building the school and cultural center. So they did that. They did that. I said, look, all the rich boys you leave to me. You go around to the other guys because I know how to deal with the rich ones. There, one guy took it and gave me a 10,000 rand, $10,000 check. So I said, what is this? I tore up the check, threw it down, and I walked out. So he ran after me to the gate. He said, no, please, you can't just leave like that. I said, well, you better improve the check and make it 50,000. Because I knew what he was worth. I knew what he was worth. Right? Okay. But now here, this man that had become an alcoholic, right, I got his family together, and when I gave him the order to make 500 of those statuettes, very beautiful piece of art, very beautiful. He's got 4 daughters, so every night they used to sit down together making these statuettes. The one daughter would put it in the kiln, I think. The other one would do the painting on it, the coloring, and things like that. And I said, look, you're making the statuette of Shiva and Parvati. Fine. Now let me give you a chant to go with. It'll be a lot of fun. That's the way I put it to them. And so while they were busy every night making these, they were busy chanting away. Here the family that was breaking apart started getting together. They're working together, praying together, chanting together. So the family became more and more together. When they became more and more together, and because of the force and power of the chant, this chap's desire for alcohol became less and less and less, and he stopped drinking. Up to today, he has not touched a drink. Right. Now, look at the benefits. This man was taken away from his alcoholism. Number one, his family came together, a home that was breaking up, and the money he made making these statuettes helped to pay all his debts. So he was not declared a bankrupt. And here with the proceeds from the sale of the statuettes, a school was built, a cultural center was built. Do you see? The wide-ranging effects. Now, people, they can have a drink, why not? But moderation. To have a few drinks before a meal or as a nightcap, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But when it becomes abused, when it becomes a disease, then that disease has to be cured. And I have found that spiritual practices contributes a great amount to even, you cannot cure alcoholism. Just because of this one friend, I think I must have read over 20 books on alcoholism. Because I want to study what the whole problem is. And I did that. It helped him very much. It helped everyone concerned. And today, doctors do agree that a person who is an alcoholic, he's not just a drunkard. He suffers an illness. There's a lack in him. So if that lack is substituted by spiritual practices, then there won't be any lack anymore. Is it like that? Next, what is 25 to 11? This chap was going to get married. So his friend asked, "What's happening when you're getting married?" So he says, "She won't marry me when I'm drunk, and I won't marry her when I'm sober." Well, I've got so many more here. One line next time.
I very much like poetry that you recited on radio.
I recited that poem. Dr. Mack is there. Do you listen to it this afternoon? Yeah, we were traveling somewhere and on the car radio. And thank you, Dr. Mack. It is very beautifully put over. Yes, I recited it. Yes, it was me. Sir.
Self-guilt that may become self-destructive.
Self-guilt, yes. Do you know heart disease is not the biggest killer in the world? Cancer is not the biggest killer, but the biggest killer in the world is guilt. Where it gnaws at your entrails and kills you from inside. I've made a lot of tapes on the subject, on guilt, and I wouldn't be able to do justice to you explaining it in a few words, but you could definitely get in touch with Mary Beth Nash and borrow a few tapes on the subject from her and listen to them. You will definitely love them, I promise you. There are lots of tapes available, and of course, Mary Beth is also the librarian of our tape library, and anything you need on any subject, there's a catalog on various subjects, and I think I've given thousands of talks throughout the world. They've estimated that if all those talks are put into book form, they'll make about 50 volumes of 500 pages each. And it amounts up so quickly, you'd be surprised. One talk, it fills 20 pages. Right. And you do 3 a day, 60 pages. So in 3 days, you've got a book. You see? So that, yes. And as a matter of fact, we are busy on a project at the moment, trying to get some books out, some literature. Mind you, there are a few books written on me. One is called The Path of Unfoldment by Savita Taylor, that's available. Then there's one, Jewels of Silence by Ted Partridge, that's available. But some of my stuff must also be published now. And then there are many ladies that are busy, doing transcriptions of the talks which will of course have to be edited and put into book form, because there's a difference between the written word and the spoken word. And for example, while speaking, you might repeat a sentence twice for a certain kind of emphasis, while in the written word it would read stupidly. Well, friends, thank you very... Oh, sorry, you wanted to...
The period of Canadian poetry, would you be willing to recite?
If you...
Would you like to just?
I never memorized them. If I had some with me, I would. But I've made a tape. Who's this famous folk and country singer in America? Who? Kenny Rogers, yes. From Las Vegas, when I was going to Los Angeles, they had a car pick me up at in Los Angeles to take me to his studio to do a tape on poetry. And if you want a copy, Mary Beth. Oh, by the way, we've promised a copy to Dr. Mack. He must be given one with my personal compliments as a gift. Huh? Okay. We are busy with a volume. I've got a wonderful artist in Spain, and every poem he's busy illustrating them, and every poem will be illustrated. In other words, on this side of the page, illustration; on that side of the page, poem. About 100 illustrations, 100 poems. So the Spanish artist is busy. He's a brilliant artist. I think you've seen some of his work. I brought one of his drawings to America on my last trip. Yeah, this was a few months ago. December? Yeah, December. Well, thank you very, very much. It has been a privilege and a joy and a pleasure to me to be with you all. May God bless you. Keep well, take care, and find your inner self. And all else will be added on to you, including poetry. Yeah? Yeah.